It is story time, boys and girls. We're going to get into the salt a little deeper, and I'm going to give you definitions and understanding of the individual letters, and then we'll get into some really interesting stories and explain to you how this all connects from the unspoken world to this physical reality we live in. And we'll really dig deep on what salt is and see if I've done a lot of videos on this and see if I can't concrete these ideas in this one video, bring them all together and really break your brain and show you what's going on here. And as I've always put out there, these letters in the English language, it's Anglish, means angles and angels. This language that we use, the letters are a bunch of symbols, and those symbols are just like hieroglyphs. They have meaning unto themselves. The shapes didn't come out of nowhere, and the sound associated with those shapes means something. And it's a cymatic that is made from the vocal cords. It's creating a frequency, it's creating a cymatic imprint on reality. And each of these letters has so much value that it even links up with numbers. And this would be the use of numbers and letters together called gematria. There's different systems that are used in different languages and different systems that are used even within English. But there are some things that we can really boil down to explaining simply for people that haven't got very far into gematria and they don't know too much about language. And it's simply this, that there are really about 10 sounds. There are really 10 sounds that are connected to the 10 numbers. I mean, obviously sound is infinite, but for the use of magical incantations and using the voice to create things, there's about 10 sounds really. And so some of these letters of the 26 get broken down and get bound together. And so I'm going to give you a lesson on SL and T and D, which is the really powerful letters that are pretty much used in all aspects of strength and grounding and energy. And we'll start with the letter S, and we'll go from there. So the letter S, as anybody knows, is everything to do with the snake. It's the serpent energy connected to money, which is currency. It's where you get the word Isis, right? ISIS, ISIS, which is money. And Isis is connected to the moon, just like cows say moo. Leave this over here for you later as a little bonus of some ideas. So this S has everything to do with serpent or snake-like and energy. It's a very, it's even how you speak it and where you put your tongue in your mouth. So the symbol and the idea of the S has a lot of qualities of the snake. I mean, your tongue even vibrates upon the roof of your mouth. And we can get into this. I didn't even realize I was doing this, but we have D, N, T, L, and S. That's called your dentals. Dentals. Like your dentist, your teeth. And these are the only letters that you have to use your tongue on your teeth to say. D, N, T, L, and S. And the rest of the letters you don't have to. So it's even imprinted that way. This language that we received from a higher source, from wiser people than we are, from people that designed and constructed this reality, that constructed these letters and words. It's so hyperdimensional that it's almost unbelievable. It's believable because every time you go and you research this, and every time you look at these words and these letters, and they always link up, and they link up to other things too, as I've always done in my other videos to show you how that works. But here we go with this S. So we've established that S has everything to do with snake and energy. And the L is about the L, as in the Elohim, or the Lees, or the Ang-Els. The Lees, everyone's name in China is last name is Li or Li, and it has to do with the kings, because the kings were you get into the Levi's, or even the pants you wear, the Levi's or Leviticus, any of these cults and these cultures. So these L's are a 90-degree angle. That's the origination. So that angle of the L, which is also called a corner, where you take a dead body to a corner, it gives you angles and it chops up an ultimate reality of the soul. And the soul is a zero. It's empty. There's no angles. And then somebody puts an L in there, and they start chopping up the reality and fractionating it. So that's what the kings did. This is what the L's do. It takes and divides up reality. So these L's, remember that you can see it in the letter, and when you speak it forth, the L, you're using your tongue once again because it's producing an angle with your tongue in your mouth to produce a sound wave that becomes a cymatic that expresses something. And the T, now T is everything to do with the cross. Has to do with I'm going to show you this connection to the D. See, let me get my eraser out here for a second here, guys, and explain to you about the connection to the T and the D. Oh, here we go. A little space here. Oh, okay. Well, let me just talk through this. Okay. The D is the fourth letter, which is the sun coming over the horizon. So that's the sun symbol right there. I've done this in other videos, and we talk about the houses in the basement and the square D and the panel in the basement. So that's your D right there, which is the fourth letter. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 10. 10 is a tan. And this is I'm just giving you a little bit of information on the side here. The tan is the 10. This is the darkness that you get from the light. This is the binding force. So the sun symbol, which when we turn it up is a D, the reference is to the sun. And everything that the T is in reference to the cross, or the crossing to what is the Son of God, or the sun in the sky, or this. So this connection between the T and D is not only done in a symbolic format, but in an audible format. Because the letter T, if you say T and D, TD, TD, it's a very, very similar expression of the cymatic. It's a very similar, almost exactly the same. So there's a very close connection between T and D's. So they can be used interchangeably, because as the language is used, it's about the sound. It's not about the spelling. The spelling is important on a page for encoding things for people, but the sound is what's important. So now that we've established the D, the T is the cross, and we have the word soul we can get out of there, the word salt, and all of these different words that I have on the page here, especially the top ones. And this connection has everything to do with the salt and the king. And I'm going to try to tell this story in a different way, and even show you that it crosses over into different languages, what it has to do with these cows in the Bible. So here we go. The soul is the first thing. It's an SOL, which is what's on the bottom of your foot. It's what you are made of. It means the sun. It also means the soil beneath your feet. And it also has something to do with this character, Saul. Saul, his name was changed to Paul. But this is a little side note. And that was when he went from becoming a Jew to becoming Christian. And so it has something to do with what those two, that's a little deeper meaning. And that's going to stay hidden for a while, because that's too long of a yarn to spin here. But it has to do with the connection between what the letter S is and what the letter P is. But as we can see, the soul is the original thing that is a circular container for your vessel, which is you, which is everything around you, and then you got divided up. And that division happened by something being crossed. So you can say this soul is a cell, and so the cell is the thing that happens afterwards. You sell your soul, so you become sold. And there's a thing on a ship that is helping to move the ship. It's called a sail. And so something goes on sale at a store. And let me just give you a little idea of a store. A store is also a star. What is a star? A star is a moving body of energy in the sky. So you can go to the store, which is a place that houses all of this energy, and you can collect things there. Just like a star gives you energy. There's energy within those systems in the sky. So when your soul is crossed or dirty, you would call it soiled or sold. And interestingly enough, the word sold is so old because it has something to do with aging you. And as we know, the T and the D have a very similar construct. And so something that is sold, see, I'm gonna name this, have you been assaulted? And so by being assaulted, you are in injury. It means there's a weighting that occurs. And that weighting is putting weight on your body. It's waiting for your removal of the offense against you, which is the salt. So it's even the word silt, which is what's in the ground. It's the muddy, murky stuff. So we can even go into ancient languages, and the word sealtan means salt, when the word sealtan is connected to the word sultan. And the sultan was the king. Now, before I make all those connections to these kings, we're going to finish up these S's. And even the soldier was, what is this? What has a soldier done? He has given his soul to something. He's given himself to something as a larger conglomerate, a larger unit. So he's given up his individuality, his in fact soul. So he's sold it. He's crossed his soul. And this is even, you can get into the word salutation and salute. And that's when someone leaves. There's something that is finishing. It has to do with a stiffness and a rigidity and something that's leaving. And this soul, or sultan, obviously has a big connection to Satan. And what Satan is, and its connection to the devil. And as devil is evil, or lived, as in live and evil. See, there's just this connection again. As I've done in other videos, I'm making this connection between Jesus Christ being up there, as in the higher consciousness, and Julius Caesar being down there, as in the physical world. So the physical manifestation that comes out of the imagination of the higher consciousness. So the JCs are connected. So here's how these connections work. The word malak is the word malash and Moloch. Let me get this out of the way here. And Moloch is this god here, which has to do with the cow and the bull god, and the two-horned god. And so Moloch is of the underworld. So Moloch is very associated with Satan of the underworld. And that Satan Moloch reference is, once again, this is not good or bad, it's just talking about duality, and the duality that you think you see outside of you is actually a duality of physicality and spirituality, because people haven't bound those two together. So it's actually a ladder of linking something above and something below, which is your mind, your imagination, and your spirit, which is the above part, with the lower physical, denser realm, which is Julius Caesar's world, which is Satan's world. And so that Malek means salt, and Malash means king, or that's backwards. So Malek means king, and Malash means salt. So we have this king-salt connection. And this salt-king connection goes even deeper, because Malak is MLK, as in Martin Luther King, and that's the word milk. And this word milk is what you get from the cow. And the cows used to have horns when they were aurochs, and you can still find some now. And that's horns, and the bulls. So these are not fanciful connections. These are legitimate, like, they're here. This is all written in the language. It's why you have a Bible. See, in the Bible, it means to split the bull. It means to divide something. That's what "by" means. And the bull is their god. And their god being the bull, and the cow, the binding of the bull is the male, and the female is the cow, and they say moo. Save that for later. But that cow gives the milk, the MLK, the mother's milk, the milk. So this connection to milk is where you get this interesting concept of, you'd say, oh, are you the son or daughter of the milkman because your father was off working and the milkman came through? And the milkman, he came and delivered the milk and impregnated the mother. This is the idea. And that milkman is the word MALKAM, which means king, and MALKAM. We can get into even some of the shows that you might watch on TV and what these things have. There's a binding there because the story is just retold and repackaged in different ways. But if you can look through the symbolism, you can see that MALKAM, it means the king, the highest king, really, connects to everything to do with the king, which is the coin. It's the same word, which is Cohen, and the Cain. This is why Cain is the one that slew Abel, because if someone is able, then they don't need a Cain. But that Cain, as you can see, is what you walk with. It's a J. It's upside down. And so that Cain, it also looks like a hook, and it also looks like what the person carries to collect the sheep, what's over the shoulder. It's that reference to the flock beneath. And it's also a hook, as in a fishing hook, as Jesus was the fisher king. And Julius Caesar, the Caesar salad is the fish. So it's the connection of the spiritual up above and the lower and bound together. And so you can connect this to why Julius Caesar's face is on a coin, because that coin represents the physical world and what Caesar gave, what Caesar is. He has JC. The word is the same. Jesus Christ is Julius Caesar. One is a physical outpouring, and one is the mental spiritual plane. So these koans means a priestcraft, where the kings that put their coins out there into public. And I've done in other videos, I'm not going to go too deep on this, but there's a connection to why people were controlled by the kings and the coin, and the connection to the salts. And we're going into the salts really deep here. And I would just suggest, so this doesn't turn into and drag on into a 2-hour diatribe, to watch the other videos that I've done. But there is a connection to the salt and the coin because of the energy that is spit out from the staff or the scepter. So this milk that comes from we'll get to this milkman and this Malcolm and this cow, and you see the horns? This is why the connection to the moo, the moon, the moonts, the money, the moony. See, when the moon is crescent, that is the horns of the dual bi-bull god Moloch. It's a Lord, Lord, is lowered down God. It's to lower down the consciousness of the higher consciousness to the physical realm. It's not a bad thing. It sometimes is used in a very unwise way to lower down consciousness and thoughts into the realm, but you can do it in a positive way too. And this is people divide it and say this is good and this is bad, and that's just not how it works. It's all bound together, and it's about bringing down a consciousness and an idea into this lower realm. into this more dense physical realm. Now, that milk that is coming from the cow and the moon and the months and the moony is all connected to the nighttime, the evening. So this is why it's Adam and Eve. Eve as in the darkness. The woman is the darkness, the cave of creation, which is everything to do with magnetics, the magnesium in your brain, which is a nighttime element, the just the magic and the magnet and Mary Magdalene and these mags. And so that nighttime energy is everything that's going on with the female energy is in the darkness. And this is even into black magic. They're dealing with feminine energy principles. And it's not a bad thing. It's some people just go overboard, just like some people go overboard with the male energy. It's just a balancing of the two energies of the male and the female dynamic. But because people are unaware of the mag, they're very aware of the L's, which are the male, the male gods, which are the angles. So these male, this is why the kings, nobody really talks about the queens, even though the queen and the king is the same thing, it's the same word. It's the male reference that's been popularized as the patriarch, and this has to do with the patriarch and the papacy and the paper and the trees and the male essence of energy of the L's. This is why the electricity is so important these days. But the difference is now, as people are becoming more wise to what's going on, they're more concerned with the water, the wetness, the womb, the woman, the nighttime, the moon, and it's starting to become clear as to where the energy is actually pulled from. And it's pulled from the ether. It's pulled from the electricity comes out of nowhere. It comes out of the air. It's just there. Just like in your body. Where did it come from? What is life? What is life force? Well, it comes out of darkness. It comes out of the cave of creation. It comes out of the woman. It happens. Just like the seed. How did that tiny little seed unfurl? Well, that's the mystery that it's just unsolvable, basically. But it is energy, and it's there in the darkness. So these gods that are displayed forth as icons, and again, the word icon, I-C-O-N, there you go, C-O-I-N, is coin. It's the icon or the idol that's put in front of someone that people use as idol worship. They've gotten it confused. It's not the physical that is worshipped, and this is why people that go down certain paths, they start to worship the physical, when the physical is the outpouring of the spiritual. It's not to discredit or disgrace or to damage the physical. It's to knowing where it comes from, but they're bound together. So what does this have to do with salt? Well, when we start taking the physical world and believing that the physical world, the physical soil that's beneath our feet, which is now, that soil has salt in it because that's where it should be, on the ground, to be that cube that will reflect and refract light within it. It should be left in the ground to do what it does there to grow the plant. It calculates, it cubes to cube something is to put a number and then put a 3 next to it. So you cube it, it multiplies the energy potential within that. So it takes the light and it puts it into that plant. And it grows and it becomes the thing that you should consume. Because the plant's job, as it sits there, it doesn't move, it doesn't run, it sits there and it collects the water and it collects the electricity and light, and it brings forth the fruit for you to consume. But we are obsessed with trying to bypass that, so we take the salt out of the ground and out of the ocean and we put it into our bodies. And it only damages our system by clogging things up and by putting things into a cube. And once again, a cube unfolded is 6 sides. So we take those 6 sides and it becomes a cross. And that cross is the unfolding of the cube into the letter T. So that T is now folded up a bunch of corners. So corners are death. Corner is where you take the dead to the corner, and it collects light into those corners. That's why if you can look into the physics of what happens when you put a light into a cube and where the light goes into the corners. So those those salts that are only in specific places, the seas, and this is where most of it comes from, are the Himalayan sea salt. Well, the people live all over the planet. Why should we think? Why would we believe for 1 second that people in these past history of their cultures who are vegetarian, and there's so many that we're not consuming salt? Why would we think that we need this Himalayan salt? I don't live in the Himalayas. Do you? So did our life completely revolve around our ability to take a plane or a boat to the Himalayas to get salt? No. So what happened in the beginning? Well, in the beginning, and this is, we're not going to go all the way back to the beginning, but this has to do with the connection to the kings starting to sell people, putting people in cells by using salt and paying them with salt. They took their energy and their power, and this goes, I'm not going to get too far into it here because I've done this in the other videos you can just look for those, but it just has to do with the payment of salt. They were given something that they didn't need, and they were usurped. Their energy was usurped, and in place of it given a salt cube. And that cube of salt, it's not living. It's not a living element. It's inorganic. But the salt in the foods that is living, is vibrating, is organic. It's almost, see, there's the confusion because the word is used the same, salt and salt, but why? That's where the trick comes, because one isn't living and one is. You put some salt down and it stays there for good. You put a fruit out there with all the salt in it, eventually that will decay because it's living. Just because it will grow and it will decay. So what one has life force? Certainly. So when we put salt, an inorganic model of salt, a molecule from the waters of the sea, because not everybody lived near the ocean either. Let's do this again. So the salt is not a construct that you need to be putting in your body. And so when you do, then you have to go see the doctor. You have to go to the medicine man to try to fix you because you've assaulted yourself. So now you've given your power away to the king and then to the medicine man. And the obvious answer is to flood your body, the great flood. If you want to read into it a little deeper, might have to do with flooding your body with water to cleanse out all the things that are blocking up passages of light, passages of water. Water is liquid light. If you buy into a theory, an idea that the sun is hydrogen and the air you're breathing is oxygen, and you look at that stuff that's liquid, that's said to be hydrogen and oxygen, then you can certainly say that is liquid sunlight. So whether you look at it that way or you look at it from the electric universe plasma model, we can also get into the fourth phase of water. But we certainly can see all of these connections between the dense physical realm, and we're trying to decipher and unveil this idea that there is something wicked about the world, because living in sin is to mean living in a sine wave, or to just move around and swim within this construct. So the sine wave is just the idea of, it's not duality because it's still bound together. You just don't go too far in one direction, because that will, that's what ends up in DI or BI, to split. To die is to split. So you'd split yourself back into wherever you were before this and have to come back again and try it out again. Or you could learn right now that the salt is not what you need. Stop fractionating the light information that's coming into your body. Stop putting things in the way of your water moving the information through you. And the information should come through what tastes good. And here's a few people, because somebody had asked me to make this video. Francis, you can look up Herbert Shelton, you can look up Norman Walker. I haven't looked into their work too much. It's just the first things that it came to mind. I mean, it's so wide and varied places to find this. I would just go right to Andrew Norton Webber's Aquarius the Water Bearer, and there's a whole thing on salt crimes and a whole thing on the distilled waters, and he pretty much lays to rest the entire pseudo debate, which I've written on fully. And you go to my zenalchemist.wordpress and search salt, and I have my essential readings on salt. It's a very long, it's very long writing, but it should pretty much cover everything in there as to what the salt is, when we should be consuming it. Well, I don't really get into when we should be consuming because we really shouldn't. But I will say this. There may be a point in time, there may be a reason, because once again, salt can be and is a conduit for electrical charge. There may be a reason to put it in your body in micro doses at some point in time. But it doesn't seem like it should be. It seems like it will just, it's kind of like there's so many addictive qualities to it that there's another way to do it. And so until your body is completely clean, and this goes into what I was telling people about this blood over intent ritual, which has to do with plasma, which has to do with red blood cells, and even salts that are actually causing a lot of problems in people. Once you clean your body, then you can think more clearly about what you should be doing as far as consuming salt. You will know. You will just have a resonance in you. And if you look into all of these other cultures, they stepped away from salt. Do you let's go into this again. Do animals go out and are they going to the Himalayas and getting salt? Are they going to the ocean and getting salt? No. It's ridiculous. They don't do that. Do babies eat salt? No. They couldn't. They don't. So once again, if we just go back to our original form, what happens coming out of the womb? What are we consuming coming out the womb? What are these animals consuming that are vegetarian? It's very simple, and we make things complicated. And what the salt has done is it's fractured our consciousness. And this, I'll even get into it because somebody wanted me to make a video about autism, and I even think there's probably a link even into the way that it's spelled. Autis. I mean, I didn't give this too much thought here, but I have done some ideas on Alzheimer's. Well, there you go. Alzheimer's, autism. It's a very similar construct of the language. And both of them, there seems to be a connection to the type of behaviors that an autistic child and an autistic adult would have, and someone that starts to get Alzheimer's. And it has to do with the same problem, which is salts getting into the brain and causing short circuits. And this goes into why we need clays to put on the body, why we need to consume a little bit of clay, why we need to clean our bowels out, why we need to clean out the the underworld. And I actually had another set of words over here to make this connection for you, but I've done this in other videos. The bile is bowel is Baal. Baal is connected to Cain, which is connected to Moloch, which is Satan. The whole thing is bound right there, just a physical thing. And it's your bowels, and there's nothing wrong with your bowels. It's just that you're feeding it the wrong thing. So let's consider what we're sticking into our bowels. I think this is about all I want to really cover here. I think if anybody has any more questions on this, I'll try to go a little deeper. But I guess the only other thing I could really say to this is the metals, the heavy metals. Meta, the word metals comes from meta, L, means to cross something, to cross the mind. So we've got to really consider these things that we're putting in our body that are metals of any degree, whether they're even what people are touting as, oh, put the, you need colloidal silver, or you need gold, or whatever it might be. Maybe you do. Maybe it does something. Maybe you will get a charge out of it. But are you sure that that charge isn't connected to the people that already have a lineage and ownership per se over that frequency? That the people that have all of the gold. So if you have gold now, gold fronts in your mouth, and gold that you're consuming, you may have some more power, but is it yours? Are you getting it from, is that being bestowed upon, to you from some outside source? And you're making connections to things that you should not be? That's only a couple questions, but certainly the salt and the heavy metals shouldn't be going into our systems. And so it becomes very easy. Find the things that taste good and look good. Cheers, y'all. Talk soon.